So dancehall artist Kiprich charged because of a song. Freedom of expression stop keep. Thanks for joining me. I'm Dionne Jackson Miller. Time for tea. So the police said that dancehall artist Kiprich has been charged because of a song he did. A lot of people have been asking what about his right to freedom of expression, so I want to break it down. First and foremost, yes, freedom of expression is a constitutional right. So yes, Kiprich, as an artist, has a constitutional right to express himself. The question though, does he have a constitutional right to express himself with this song? So the song is about the One Order gang, and the police say the song endorses gang violence and pays tribute to members of the One Order gang. The song talks about the One Order man them going crazy. It says you ditch the gen and now the whole of Spanish town going to blaze. It says among other things, you know, should have no One Order no soft, them now go take over throw. Now stand up in the way, you reap what you sow. One Order now go make one daddy badness go so. Okay, so it's so among other things. Now, this song came out after the police killed Othniel Thickman Loban, who they say was a leader of the One Order gang. So there's a lot going on here. First and foremost, let's go back to this idea of freedom of expression, because freedom of expression is not absolute. It's not an absolute right. You can't say anything at all you want without some kind of consequences. Freedom of expression can be limited. When you look at it in all the international treaties, for instance, that Jamaica has signed and ratified, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the American Convention on Human Rights, and others, you do see freedom of expression set out. And it's also set out, as I said before, in the Jamaican Constitution, which, by the way, also provides for the right to seek, receive, distribute, or disseminate ideas or opinions through any media. Because in this case, if we're talking about freedom of expression with a song, we're also talking about distributing, putting out, sharing the ideas in that song or in your writing, in your art, whatever it is. That is also a constitutional right related to the right of freedom of expression. But everywhere where you have freedom of expression set out as a right, you also have limitations and restrictions on it. For instance, I mentioned the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and there we see that restrictions on freedom of expression are allowed to protect the rights and reputations of others, also to protect national security, public order, public health, or morals. So this idea of being able to restrict freedom of expression, it's not just a Jamaican thing, all right? It's done all over. So yes, Parliament can make laws that will restrict freedom of expression, but those restrictions also have to follow certain rules, right? So in the case of our Constitution, Parliament can make laws to restrict our rights. What the Constitution says is that Parliament can do that if it's demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. And to help to figure out what that means, the courts have laid down a number of rules. For instance, they look at whether or not the law restricting the right in question, so freedom of expression we're talking about, was that law enacted for a proper purpose, a purpose that's important enough to warrant the restriction of a constitutional right. Does the means used to achieve the objective violate the right as little as reasonably possible? Is a benefit that comes from restricting the right greater than the harm that could become from the restriction? The Court of Appeal, by the way, laid out all of this in the Dale Virgo case, citing Chief Justice Sykes and what he said in the NIDS case, if you want to go and read up on that. Now look, Jamaica is a high crime environment. We still had over 1,100 murders in 2024. We have a serious gang problem. Just in November 2024, Prime Minister Holness said that Jamaica had moved from over 300 documented gangs. Still had, he said, just under 180. But he said there remained a hardened core of gangs that continue to wreak havoc. So look, we're all worried by this high crime environment, right? Honestly, it can't, though, be that whenever a lawyer or human rights advocate raises concern about a law and action by the state, that the hue and cry starts to be that they're anti-law and order. Can't do that. Anyway, here's the act that Kiprich was charged under. It's actually the offenses against a person act, because I was checking back, trying to find stories in the archives about when, what happened when this act came into being, and I couldn't find anything. So what had actually happened was that the initial proposal was to criminalize certain types of songs under the anti-gang law, and it was controversial. Look, I even found this blog post that I wrote about it on my blog at the time. And one of the things I said again at that point is that rights are not absolute. So this provision now to criminalize certain types of songs wasn't included in the anti-gang law. And I seem to have forgotten about it, but somehow it seemed to have been passed into law very quietly in 2014 under the Offences Against the Person Act. And I'm saying it that way because there wasn't any hue and cry, and I think it was done very quietly so as not to attract any attention here. I just do not recall, and I can't find any evidence that there was a big national discussion about it at the time. So this is what the law now says, right? It's 18A of the Offences Against the Person Act, and it has two parts. So it says a person shall not produce, record, sell, import, perform in public, circulate, play a recording of an audio-visual or audio-visual communication that does one of two things, right? 1A, you are not supposed to promote the killing of or other serious act of violence against any other person or group of persons. Or you're not supposed to seek to promote, encourage, or facilitate the criminal activity of a criminal organization. Now, the first section is pretty straightforward, right? You're not to promote killing or promote doing serious harm to any person or any group of persons. That's straightforward. And, two different people asked me today what I thought about how this would affect Boom Bye Bye. And I do think if Boom Bye Bye were released today, that it would be caught by this particular section and be unlawful because of this section, because that is a song that does advocate violence, serious violence, and even death to male homosexuals. Anyway, back to where we are today. Kiprich was not charged under the section of the law that speaks about promoting killing or promoting serious violence. He was charged under section 18A1B that he was seeking to promote, encourage, or facilitate the criminal activity of a criminal organization. All right, so the concern here is about this particular provision, which we're now looking at. Just this part of the law is what I'm talking about, all right? And the concern is that it's very broad, and it looks as if it could catch a lot of things. It looks to me as if it could catch art. Well, clearly we're seeing catching a song in this particular case. What about a painting, photojournalism, or just ordinary photography? If any of those things have as a subject matter gangsters or a criminal gang, could the person be arrested for that and be deemed to be promoting criminal activity by a criminal organization? Look, I want to be absolutely clear about what my position is, right? I think if you're inciting violence against people, you should be charged. I think if it can be proven that you're threatening police in particular, right? Or you're calling for police to be harmed or to be killed in any way, yes, you should be charged. In particular, our police who are under threat every single day and who put their lives on the line many times when they go out on operations, right? Given what's happening in Jamaica, I don't think that's something that should be countenanced. Or for that matter, if you're threatening violence against specific groups of people, I also don't think that should be countenanced. And if the police have evidence to say you're doing that, then yes, go ahead, charge them. See, we have the law in place for that. All I'm objecting to is this one section of this particular law, which I'm saying I think is too broad. I think it's too broad, and because of that, I think there is a good argument that this one particular section could be deemed unconstitutional. So we'll see what Kiprich and his lawyers decide to do, right? But let me just say this one more time. This is not about supporting Kiprich. This is not about supporting any gang, God forbid, All I'm doing is raising concern about one small provision of one act that I think is too broad and I think could have negative implications for legitimate free expression. That's all I'm saying. I am saying let's keep state power within reasonable limits. I know we're feeling desperate. I know we want to put in place harsh measures, and we do have in place harsh measures. That's not it at all, right? We just want to make sure that the laws we put in place get the people we actually want to get, the real criminals, and are not so broad that they can stifle legitimate free speech. I'm Dionne. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I want to hear what you think. Do drop your comments below. Like the video now. Share it with a friend you think might be interested. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. And click that little notification bell so you can be informed anytime I have a new video out. I'm Dionne. Thank you so much for watching. Go and drink my tea.